Hey guys, Problem1701 here, and today I'm going to start a new series I call The Weakest Link. It's where I take a really good season of Doctor Who and I try to find the one episode that's the weakest in it, the one episode that I consider bad, that keeps it, if someone was doing a contest where they were ranking the best season of Doctor Who, the one story that I think would keep it from the number one spot. Let me be clear, I do think season 13 of Doctor Who, we're talking about classic Doctor Who with Tom Baker, his second season, I do think it's one of the best stories in all of Doctor Who. I mean, top five, just objectively top five, subjectively top five. It's a really good season with some of the best Doctor Who stories ever written. However, would I put it at number one? And while I think there's an argument to be made that you could, I personally don't. I think season 12 is better. Now, between season 13 and 14, it gets a little trickier to tell. But I'm going to talk to you why I think there is one bad story in season 13. Because there are 6 stories that make up season 13. 3 bona fide masterpieces. 1 I think is overrated. 1 I think is underrated. And 1 I think just isn't good. First, let's talk about season 12. Because a lot of people... that's a big thing in the Hinchcliffe era. Which one's the best? Which one's the best? Because all 3 seasons, 12, 13, and 14, are really good. I like 12 the best. 12 is my favorite Doctor Who season of all time. Because to me, season 12 has 2 bona fide classics, masterpieces in The Ark in Space and Genesis of the Daleks. It has an underrated regeneration story in Robot, which y'all have heard me talk about Robot before. I love Robot. And then, of course, we have the 2-parter, the Centauron Experiment, which is great. It fills out its 2 parts perfectly. It doesn't run longer than it needs to. It's a great Centauron episode. It's a good lead into Genesis. Does its job perfectly. And then, of course, the criminally underrated Revenge of the Cyberman. I know that's the one people point out when I'm like, season 12 is the best. They're like, And I'm sitting there going, no. Go back and watch it. It's really good. Because I've talked before, I won't go into long detail on it, but I do love Revenge of the Cybermen. I think it's one of the greatest Cybermen stories. It's criminally underrated. One of the most underrated stories in all of Doctor Who. So I personally think there's no bad episodes in season 12. As opposed to season 13. Let's start breaking down season 13. I think of the 6 episodes, as I mentioned, you have 3, arguably 4 bona fide classics. The 3 that I know for sure are bona fide classics, and they have the reputation to go with it, are The Brains of Morbius, which is fantastic. You have The Seeds of Doom, which is fantastic, and probably my favorite Tom Baker season finale. I do love The Seeds of Doom a lot. It's really good. You also have Pyramids of Mars, another bona fide masterpiece. The only complaint I'd have about Pyramids of Mars is that the mummies look a little goofy. They don't really look like mummies. But other than that, bona fide classic. I love Sutekh, one of the greatest Doctor Who villains ever. And then I think you have one that's a bit overrated, but is arguably and has the reputation of being a classic. That's Terror of the Zygons. I know it has that reputation for being a classic. I don't quite think it's there. I think it's good, but it's not like I don't think it's essential watching. It's not in my Tom Baker top 10 list for sure. I think even if you moved Terror of the Zygons to season 16, I'd still like Pirate Planet better. But it's good. Then I think there's one that's slightly underrated, and that's Planet of Evil. I actually really love Planet of Evil, and I think the only reason it's underrated is because of all the stories that it's stacked next to. I mean, when you're going up against stories that have the reputations that, Seeds of Doom, Brain of Morbius, Terror of the Zygons, and Pyramids of Mars all have, it's really hard to compete with that. I think if you took Planet of Evil, slipped it out of season 13, and had put it in seasons 15, 16, or 17, it would be regarded as one of the best stories of the Williams era. But it's hard to compete when it's jam-packed with all these other really good stories. But I love Planet of Evil. It has a nice Jekyll and Hyde story going on. I love the special effect of the creature running around with just the red outline, which I think is very reminiscent of Forbidden Planet, if I remember correctly. I love the story itself. I love everything Planet of Evil does, and my goodness, that jungle set is amazing. Really well done. People have commented many times about how good that jungle set looks. It's well earned. It looks phenomenal. That brings me to the one bad story that everyone always seems to forget about, because I never hear anything about this one, and that's the android invasion. It sucks. The Android Invasion sucks. It's not good. It is the one thing that holds season 13 back. It's that one story when people are like, season 13 is the best Doctor Who season ever. I'm like, That's the one story I'll point out and go, that one's bad. And it is. It's awful. How often do you hear people talk about the Android Invasion? People seem to forget it exists. You know, people will be talking about season 13. They're like, there's 5 stories in it. I'm like, no, there's 6. No, there's 5. No, there's 6. You're forgetting about the Android Invasion, aren't you? And they'll be like, oh, yeah. It's not good. One, I don't like the idea of them building something, building robots and androids to test out how things would happen so they can plot their invasion. Which Doctor Who also did in Extremis. It's like the digital version of an Extremis. By the way, Extremis also isn't that great. I mean, I don't hate it. It's decent, and I think it's the best of that 3-parter. I do think that's the best part of it. And I do think it's better than Android Invasion. But really, it's like Extremis is the digital version of that, and Android Invasion is like the old school analog version of that, where they have the actual build the robots to do it. I think the creatures, the aliens that are actually doing it, are stupid. I don't like them. I don't like their design. I don't think they ever came back either because they suck. I think it's a terrible send-off for Benton and Harry, because this is the last story where we see Sergeant Benton and the last story where we see Harry Sullivan. And I don't think it's a good send-off for them. I think the last time we see the real Benton, he's unconscious. And the last time we see Benton is the android of Benton. And then Harry, I think we see him at the end rescued in the rocket. I don't think he says anything. He only has like one quick line. It's not a good send-off for either of them, and I don't like that. And then one of the big problems for the story is that the absence of the Brigadier is very palpable. It's very there. You can really feel it. And I get that Nicholas Courtney wasn't available at the time. He couldn't do the story. I understand that. But it's so noticeable, and it's so obvious, and it so detracts from the story for me, because he should be there. If they're doing this perfect recreation to take into account everything that could happen, you have to have the leader of unit there. And the scene where, the Doctor sees his name on the door in his office just calls attention to it all the more. And so the Brigadier not being there really hurts the story and really hurts its credibility and its believability to me personally. And then just the androids when their face is off. It's so obvious. It's like a little puppet or mannequin. Not puppet, but a little doll or mannequin. It's not them. And I get it. It's classic Who. I get it. Willing suspension of disbelief and all that. And I can on a lot of stuff. But for some reason, that one bugs me. Because, the androids look like people. They move like people. Because it's the actors playing them. It's Elizabeth Slane playing not just Sarah Jane, but the android Sarah Jane. It's Tom Baker playing not just the Doctor, but the android version of the Doctor. I get that, so they move realistically, but as soon as their masks pop off, they don't. They don't look human, the bodies don't look human, they don't move right. It's just so glaringly obvious that it takes me personally out of the story. For some reason, my suspension of disbelief goes, nope, I'm out, and goes. I don't know why, but it really hurts the watchability of the story for me. And then, there's a couple things I like about the story. I really like the android Tom. Sometimes the camera angle works, like when Sarah Jane first runs into him, it does that downward shot of his face, and he looks creepy and kind of scary, like he could hurt somebody. It's wonderful use of camera and lighting there. And then that one scene when the android Benton, I think it is, shoots the android Tom, thinking it's the real Tom, and he just looks at him and goes, satisfied. Nice acting there from Tom. So there are some fun moments in there that I like, but it's a handful of fun moments in a story I don't like, and I can't even remember how many. It's got to be 4 parts. Yeah, it's 4 parts. And even at 4 parts, it feels too long. I just don't like this one. It is the one story I think that holds season 13 back from being easily the best ever made. I still think it's arguably one of the best ever made, but if you try to put it at number 1, I think there's a debate to be made there, an argument to be made there.